Well, I was 55, and I was working in a plastic surgery clinic. It's a nursing facility, and we worked with a lot of cleft lip and palate children and babies. And so when one of the doctors that was in my group, he went to Tanzania, where Kilimanjaro, and Diane Sawyer was in 60 Minutes at that time, if anybody remembers who she is. But she was a famous person at that time. They were raising money to get a hospital in Arusha, which is at the base of Kilimanjaro. They found it, showed it on 60 Minutes, and I was hooked. I thought, I have to do this one time. And he, with his experience, couldn't quit talking about it, of course. And so that was at the top of my list to do it. It took me several years I kept passing up thinking, no, I'm not going to do it, because I was working and had children. So one night my husband came home, and he belonged to an athletic club, and he put down a brochure and said, there's a group that's going in 6 weeks, and I think you might consider it. So I thought, there's no way I can do it, but I met with the group. It was very small, just two couples, and I was the single person. I really liked the person that was the guide. And then the people that were participating, I thought they seemed comfortable for me to be around as well. So I did go ahead, and my husband, I asked him if he would meet me at the end of the trail, which he did. And my brother had passed, so I did have a mission. I wanted to take some of his ashes with me. So that was a goal, and I was thrilled to be able to do that. And then we went on the safari after with a group of these people, and it was, the safari is Kilimanjaro, and the safari, they're life-changing experiences, not to be missed if it's something people want to do.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. I am really excited to have with me another Colorado gal. Rachella Seeley is with me today, and she's with me in Denver, and I'm actually out in the mountains today, so otherwise we'd be sitting in the same room. But Rachella and I got connected actually through Cassandra, who keeps us both looking good. And just in talking with Cassandra, she opened up my eyes to somebody who had climbed Kilimanjaro. And if you tuned into last month's podcast, I talked with Melanie and heard about her journey. And then Rachella came forward and said, I've done Kilimanjaro. And that is originally what we were going to speak to today. But the more I started talking with Rachella and understanding her story, there's a lot more here. So we're going to get into Kilimanjaro in a second. But first, I want to say welcome officially to Rachella.
Thank you, Wendy, for having me. I'm excited to share.
Thrilled and excited to have you here. So I will say, Rachella has confided in me. She's a little bit older than me, and we both are active age deniers, and hopefully that will continue for a long time. But once you start hearing some of her adventures and what she enjoys doing and how she's built up this group of women, men's just support group, her husband, her family, and how it's helped her go on a number of trips and adventures, you're going to see why she's looking so young and going to be here on many more adventures to come. So
great. Thank you, Wendy.
Okay. So Rachella, before we even go to Kilimanjaro, let's back it up a little bit, because one of my favorite statements you made is that you didn't even break a sweat till you were 27. Right. So what happened at 27 that made you start to think about doing something a little more active, and where did you begin? What was the first step? Because that's always hard for some people. Like, where do you even begin?
Well, my husband's extremely athletic, and his family was. So he always wanted he was on a basketball team in college, and every sport you could play, he knew how to play it. So he signed up for an athletic club and was a member for a while. And he said, Rachella, I'm going to sign you up. It's 3 months free for the spouse. And I said, please don't waste your time, because I'm not going to go. I could garden and play golf, and didn't even know how to swim, actually. So he signed me up. And then one night I thought, well, I'm just going to go while he's shooting baskets in the gymnasium. The running track was upstairs. And I told myself, I think it's 16 times around for a mile. Okay. But I thought, I'll go 4 times. And so I did it 4, and I was pretty proud of myself. So I went a couple of times a week, and I push myself to the 1 mile point without telling him, because I just didn't want, I don't know. I just was challenging myself. But I couldn't believe that I broke out a sweat, and I just thought, oh, this feels so good. And the breathing. And then I sort of got hooked with, there's an average of a women's 5 miler that was about that same year, and it was our anniversary. So I thought, I'm going to sign up and do it, but I'm not going to tell him I'm going to do it, just in case I can't finish it.
Right.
I even took his basketball socks and his basketball shorts, and it was on a Saturday while he was at work, and went by myself to the race. And I knew I was going to be the last person to finish. I started in the back, and I was so afraid of what was going to happen. But then I started, and all the other women that were around, and it was an all-women's event then. And I just was so excited. I couldn't believe it. So I drove where he was working, said, you can't believe what I did. And then we found a group called the Rocky Mountain Road Runners, and they had several events each month. So we both started signing up for those and started participating on a monthly basis. We got hooked.
Yeah, got hooked.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we were saying, it's a good, healthy obsession. Like it's a good addiction.
Yes. Well, we're meeting people. We were younger, and it was nice to talk to other people, other families, and have a potluck in the parks here in Denver. So it was a good thing for our relationship.
Yeah. Well, and also one of the things I find with running groups, you know, I know we have one other group in common, the Colorado Columbines.
Mm-hmm.
So I find I meet the most amazing women in that group. And now, you know, I'm spending time in Durango, met a lot of great people, men and women in the Durango Running Club. And so it really makes a difference on those days where you're really tired. It's so much better than running by yourself or doing whatever by yourself when you know you're going to meet some people who can just help motivate you, tell stories, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's several times that I would not have gone out on a day if this group of people, the women, especially at that time, on the weekends, it was men as well. But weekly, if I didn't go once or twice after work, to just run a mile or two to somebody's house, and then we ran another couple miles down the trail and then went home. It felt great.
Yeah. And
parts of your body you didn't know that were going to hurt.
Right. But you started easy. You started with 4 laps, and then it felt kind of good. So then you built from there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the other discovery I've had, is that you really can do more than we think we can. And sometimes just getting started.
Well, that's a good point, because that one that I did was the 5 miles, and I had gone by myself to the high school track the night before just to make sure I could go 3. And then I thought, well, I'm not sure I could do the 5. So then with the road runners, the next weekend, they were having a 10K, which is 6.2 miles. And somebody said, well, meet me there and you can do it. I go, no, I can't. I just went 5. I can't go 6. I thought that's not possible. But when you go and you're around other people, the motivation is it's incredible. The strength that you find in your body to do.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So I'm looking at my notes too, because you then, how long did it take for you to go from there to Boulder and make it a family tradition? And you've done it 43 times? I
think every year they've had it. The first, again, because a few of these people, not through the Columbines, but through the Rocky Mountain Road Runners, they said there was going to be the Boulder. And then so we said, well, it's a 10K here. Let's go up to Boulder and participate in it. And at that time, it was popsicle sticks at the finish line that they gave you with your number to say how you placed. And we actually left our kids in the park. I think they're 12 years old enough to be left in the park. But we did. And just then the next year, the kids wanted to do it. And sometimes they didn't want to do it. But at the Boulder, you can run or walk. So a lot of times they would walk and we'd have somebody take them. It's okay. We just got to the point where they have groups that they put you in by your speed, your time. And again, that was a motivation on whether you're going to be in the front, towards the middle, and the back, or you can go with your friends on that day. So obviously you're in the back more, or if you challenge yourself and want to be in the front more. And going through Boulder, through that holiday have you ever done the Boulder?
I have not. Not.
Steve Bosley and that group have done an incredible job of having everything military for that day. And you finish in the stadium, and the music and the elite runners now that are there. It's quite an event. It's really nice.
That's what I've heard. So I've not seen it myself, but
Mhm.
like you, I've participated in other, really well-known events and 10Ks. Like
Mhm.
I've done Peachtree Road Race in Atlanta,
Mhm.
and again, tons of people, tons of ceremony, and lots of just,
Mhm.
again, how can you, even if you feel cruddy on that morning, you're still all this energy and all these great smiling faces around you to help push you up the
You're
road.
right. You're right. You see people this year, a woman that was amputated, she had two blades for her legs.
That's
And
amazing.
I was thinking, I was complaining. I thought I had had surgery in January on my foot and was barely walking through it. And I thought, but I'm still going to do it. And then my husband looked at me and he sort of tapped me on the shoulder and he goes, look over here. And she was at the finish line with me.
Oh my
That's what she was moving.
Yeah.
It was beautiful to watch her.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So now you and the family now have an annual tradition, and you're doing the Boulder, and then you actually start doing things like New York City Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how did you all make was it natural that you just started looking at other events, or how did you decide to go outside of Denver and Boulder? And what did you
Yeah.
get there?
Again, probably being part of the Rocky Mountain Roadrunner group and always being at dinners with people or breakfast with people, they'd be talking about, well, for sure, you want to try to qualify for Boston. And some people would say, no, there's no way we're going to ever do it. But we thought about that. And everybody always thought about New York City's one to do.
Yeah.
You can't miss that. And then a few others that everybody said to go to different countries to do. And so we thought, well, New York is the perfect place for us to go in the fall. And because we could train here in the fall and then go do New York City. We actually did it 5 years in a row. And then we would always take a vacation to Jamaica after for 10 days. So my husband could go scuba diving and I could sit on my, do nothing, just read a book and relax and watch people and know I didn't have to exercise, but I had already accomplished something. And New York is so exciting, the city in itself. Our family went a couple of times and our children went just to watch. We went to do a couple of shows and just had a fabulous time. So it was nice to pick we did a marathon for 20 years, a different one every year so that we would have a goal. And so we ended up doing it that way.
Well, and you also mentioned when we were just talking before the show that you also looked at your trip, like to Jamaica, or if you went somewhere else, you got to eat what you wanted, drink what you wanted. Kind of, again, it's a nice little reward. And I think you said one of the races you were in, you were a little chilly and it was a little cold and maybe getting a little run down or a little tired, but you were thinking, but I'm going to the warm beach or whatever was payback and reward or dessert, I guess.
Yes. At about the 16 miles or 23 mile point, you have to have a reason to finish because a lot of people are walking or can't for some, if people have experienced some situations and they are sitting on the edge of the curb. So you mentally just put in, that's when I did Kilimanjaro to know that I could go on the safari after. There's goals. That's why I always worked my brain is if I do Pilates this morning, then I won't have to go out. I'm not going to do a long walk today. So I've worked my brain to complement my body on certain areas.
And some reward in some way.
Reward for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want to hop in Kilimanjaro in a second, but I also don't want to pass up the mention that you qualified and ran Boston twice.
Right.
Because that's something I will never do. No matter how fast I run, it's just, I'm just genetically not built that way. I will give it my all and I'll try every time and I'll do half Ironmans and other things, but I'm just not as fast of a runner. So that is, for those who are listening who don't understand, that is a fast time to qualify for. So, my marathon is like 5.5 hours, but your marathon, when you qualified and did Boston, was how long? Like, give me an idea.
What our time was? I think my husband for sure he would want me to know exactly what it was. I'm sure he was under 3 hours, 2 3 hours. Mine was 3:17 and 3:18. I was fortunate with my marathons never to be able to go over the 4 hour point because we did some speed work and sometimes you're gifted. Your body is framed to do certain things. My husband, triathlon, swim. Like I said, I don't even. If you ask me to swim, I could try. I can now, but it's not pretty. So there's ways, that you. And we have friends that live right outside of Boston and had a bed and breakfast. So it was wonderful to go and stay with them and take the train in, and they watched us finish. And so it was always a goal to do it. And we did it once, and then for our anniversary, I told you it was the 100th, and my husband wanted to do it together, and I did not want to do it with him because you don't do the marathon with someone usually. But he did stay with me the whole time, and I was very happy to finish with him.
And so when you qualified the first time, do I remember you were in your 40s?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Okay. And then when was the 100th anniversary? How long ago was that? Or
I don't. You probably have the picture there with the date on it, but I think it was probably when I was 50. Okay. When we did it the first time, I was in my 40s. I know that because it was my goal to try to do that, and did New York and was running quite a bit then, and marathons were big. But after a while, when we said we're not doing marathons anymore, the training and family and we'd already gone. I mean, we just needed to try something different. So then we started doing half marathons with the women, the group, the 6 women that I love very much. And we'd go to San Francisco, Nashville, New Orleans. And then the husbands, of course, didn't go, but that was perfect.
Which we love the husbands. However, it's really fun to get away with your girls. So I do want to talk about your girl tribe, because I love the fact Betty, you said, was 94 at one point, and it was a group that was not everyone was 52 and not everyone was like 64. You had a variety of ages. So talk a little bit more about Betty and the girls that really you were traveling with, and what you learned most in that
Betty. I can talk about Betty first because she just passed this last year, and she would love the fact that we're doing this podcast. And she didn't even start training for her marathons until she was in her 50s. And
wait, I want to pause there. So women who are listening, Betty didn't even start training for a marathon until her 50s. Okay. Thanks, Keely. Thanks.
No, it's perfect. And the reason, again, I think it was from that Rocky Mountain Roadrunners group that she heard about. And then actually, I remember the first time it was Wheat Ridge, Colorado, and my husband was working at First Bank, and they were doing a 5K, a race there. And Betty heard about it, and she decided to try it. So she did that, and she won her age group and went into the bank where my husband worked and got her award. So we became close that way. And then she just started joining our training group weekly, and we're all different levels. And Betsy, that moved to Boston, her marathon times were more around the 5-hour point. And Barb, who is in one of those pictures, she used to race with mules in the mountains and did a lot of that. And then she started doing her marathons when she was a little bit older as well, maybe in her late 30s, 40s. But Betty's the one that really, she never stopped. She did Pikes Peak a couple times with us. And she never really trained very hard for it. And when we went down to Pikes Peak or down to Colorado Springs and Manitou, she said to me before we went to get our packet, she goes, "Now, Rachella, where is that Pikes Peak?" So she was just a positive, go get, let's try it. Yeah, then when she was finished with that Pikes Peak, she said, that is a way to wreck a hike. I'll never do it again. But she did it once.
Yeah, she still did it. She gave it a try.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing. If you try something, you don't love it, you don't have to do it again. But going in with an open mind and a can-do attitude, I think makes a huge difference.
Right. Yeah. And our tribe, Betty always did the boulder, and all her marathons, a lot of times when she did actually New York, they would have to almost close the course down, and she'd have to go onto the side of the road, but there's always someone that would escort her and be with her. She never stopped. She always got her medal. And when she passed at her life celebration, there's a picture of her with most of her medals that she was holding. That's what she wanted. It was, and her quilts that people do. Have you seen quilts that are made of people's shirts and things?
T-shirts, yep.
The T-shirts. She had several quilts in her home of every event that she was in. She had those all over. And she didn't start till she was well into her 50s. Any of it.
What a legacy. What a legacy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so did you also get a chance to know more about her family? Did her family, anyone, I guess, follow in her footsteps or pick up more either traveling or activities because of what she was modeling?
No, they did not. She was
Okay.
single and did not have children, but we did when we went to did the LA Marathon. We did stay with her family at at their home, and they were extremely appreciative with her. But she actually she lived right across a school from a Catholic school, and she was very participated with all the youth there and was responsible for getting a playground before she passed before COVID, had them donated enough money to have them put in a good playground so the girls and boys could have a place to go play and be physical. That was important to her.
So those were her children.
Those were her children for sure. She'd be very proud that you asked about her.
No. Well, again, I am of a similar mindset that again, I like to swim and I like to do other things, but I don't get there a lot of times on my own. I have to have my support network and my significant other group with me, men, females, whatever, the people that we agree we're meeting weekly or however we're connecting. And if it's not somebody who lives close to me, then are we meeting, like you said, in San Francisco, or am I going to meet you in Chicago I know the Chicago Marathon just happened. So yeah. So what are some of the other cities that you've been to? And then I want to see how you got the heck to Kilimanjaro. So you already mentioned Boston, New York, Boulder, San Francisco.
We did LA, and we were in Nashville and New Orleans. And one of the nicer or different places, we had an exchange student from Sweden live with us one year. And so about 4 years after that, we went over to Sweden and in Stockholm and did the Stockholm Marathon. We took our children with us and spent 2 weeks with her family touring all around. But that experience was incredible as well. They didn't start it until 3 p.m.
Oh,
and
really?
Then you looped around the city several times. And then it was so humid. I didn't anticipate how swollen my feet would be with the humidity there. So when I put on my shoes at 3 or to go to the race, I couldn't even get them tied, really.
Oh,
I couldn't, and I hate to share this. My toes were so bloody at the end, end of that. I lost my toenails, but I couldn't. I mean, it was still wonderful to be there, and all the people. No one spoke English except for me. A few times you'd see your name on the board of participants from different parts of the world, and they put Rachella from the United States, from Colorado. But I thought I have to finish this one, but it was I lost every toenail for that.
Oh my gosh! Well,
I know.
Is it the time of year where they have light later? Because starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it gets. So was it still light when you finished?
Yes, it was, but it was I'm trying to think, it was in August or September.
Okay.
I think August.
Okay.
And it was, you're just like, oh my gosh, it's
just
again, the family was there watching you. You had to do it.
Totally different experience.
Yes, a totally different one.
Okay, so I'm going to also shortcut an ending here that you've done Kilimanjaro not once, but twice. So
Correct.
Let's go back now. You've been doing these marathons, you're doing other things. How did you get to Kilimanjaro even as a goal? Like what sparked that first? And how old were you for the first time?
Well, I was 55. And I was working in a plastic surgery clinic. It's a nursing facility. And we worked with a lot of cleft lip and palate children and babies. And so when one of the doctors that was in my group, he went to Tanzania, where Kilimanjaro, and Diane Sawyer was in 60 Minutes at that time, if anybody remembers who she is. But she was a famous person at that time. They were raising money to get a hospital in Arusha, which is at the base of Kilimanjaro. They filmed it, showed it on 60 Minutes, and I was hooked. I thought, I have to do this one time. And he, with his experience, he couldn't quit talking about it, of course. And so that was at the top of my list to do it. It took me several years I kept passing up thinking, no, I'm not going to do it, because I was working and had children.
Right.
So one night, my husband came home and he belonged to an athletic club, and he put down a brochure and said, there's a group that's going in 6 weeks, and I think you might consider it. So I thought, there's no way I can do it. But I met with the group. It was very small, just two couples, and I was the single person. I really liked the person that was the guide. And then the people that were participating, I thought they seemed comfortable for me to be around as well. Right. So I did go ahead, and my husband, I asked him if he would meet me at the end of the trail, which he did. And my brother had passed, so I did have a mission. I wanted to take some of his ashes with me. So that was a goal, and I was thrilled to be able to do that. And then we went on the safari after with a group of these people, and it was, the safari is Kilimanjaro, and the safari, they're life-changing experiences, not to be missed if it's something people want to do.
Yep. And I've had several people in our community already share that they went on a type of safari and absolutely have the same statement that it's life-changing. And that is on my list. So that's one of the things I've not been able to do yet. But when I paused and thought about, oh my goodness, what if tomorrow doesn't come? What would I miss? That's one of the first things I thought of. So, yeah. And
I thought I would never do it again. I thought, well, who would ever do
this again? Right.
You're so cold and miserable, because I was by myself in the tent. The other people had their spouse, so I'm sure they were colder than you could possibly imagine. But you get over that after a bit too.
Yeah. And so then, okay, so now a few years pass, and you're going to you see something in the local paper.
I saw, yes, sorry. There's, it's called the Hub in Denver paper. And that was the Rotary Club in Evergreen, Colorado, where a man had done on the front of the paper. It said he's climbed Kilimanjaro 6 times and planning to go back. And I thought, why would you do it 6 times? Right. And then it was for a program which caught my attention for young women in Tanzania area, that the government was allowing for them to go ahead and make the climb with this particular group. I think it's called the Kiza program through Africa Aid. But so I called, I thought, well, we'll go ahead and sponsor one of these. It said in the paper, it said you could either join us, or if you couldn't join us, you could sponsor one of the girls. So I thought, well, we should sponsor one of the girls. It's something that my husband and I agreed to do. And then when I called the man, Kurt, about this, he just started talking about the young women and the chances that they get to go on this, the fact that they can't train. And he was very grateful for the money that we would give to train one. And he said, you might want to join us. Would you think about it? And I said, no, I'm not going to think about it. Thank you for asking me. I said, no, it's not possible. But then he said, well, why don't you come? We're having a barbecue one day. Come to the barbecue. I said, no, but thank you. I'll send you the check. And then one night he was having dinner at his house in Evergreen. And my husband said, we should go at least meet the group, see about what's going on. And then again, once I sat down with the group, and it was during COVID, so half of the group ended up not going. It was during COVID. Oh, okay. So once we're there, half of the group that said they were going decided not to go. And so they said, well, we have all this, the permits all set up, if anybody really would like to go. And so I asked my husband again, would you support me with this and join me at the end of the trail, which he did. So I went along.
You were not in your 40s. So how old were you this time?
I actually turned 70 on this trip.
You turned 70 on this trip, which is amazing, Rachella.
Thank you.
Just amazing.
Thank you. But I want to share with you that one of the reasons too that I took this young woman, Carmen Rossi, that you've seen in the book. Yeah. Her mother was an incredible athlete and a dear friend of our family. We went to high school with all of her husband's family. And she was a strong athlete, more than anybody I had ever seen in any group. Hiked everything, you asked her to do anything, she did it. And she got this rare cancer, and it took her in her 60s. So everybody, of course, is crushed in those situations. Then I met her daughter, Carmen, who had met her, but she lived in Wyoming and only saw her a few times. So before the service, I was sitting talking to Carmen, and she was very interested about Kilimanjaro because her mom wanted to go to Kilimanjaro. Yeah. And so after the service, I thought, once I found out, I called Carmen and said, would you ever consider, I said, I'm thinking of doing this. And she goes, oh, that's wonderful. And sort of indicated she had a tone, excitement in her about, oh gosh, I wish I could do that in my life. But she's younger, much younger, and has a job and a family. And so finally I asked her father, Paul, that we went to high school with, do you think I could ask her? And he said, yes, but she'd be nuts to do it. But I still called her. She came down from Wyoming with her daughter, and I spelled it out to her. I said, your mother's gone. So why don't you go, if possible at all, why don't you go and climb with these other people? And she goes, really? Do you think I could do it? And I said, I think you for sure could try to do it. So she went along with me on the trip, and it was wonderful to have her with me. And again, that's another reason that I knew that her mother, her name was Kathy, and her dad is Paul. I knew that I had Kathy, her daughter, with me. What a gift was that for me?
Right.
Me at my age, and she's my age and my daughter.
Yeah.
And I was able to spend 6 days with her.
Yeah.
I flew with her again, had to have the COVID testing because we didn't all travel together.
Mm-hmm.
We were tested before we left, tested at the airport there, at the Kilimanjaro airport, tested constantly. But it was wonderful to have her with me.
Well,
it was extremely helpful.
And inspiring, again, you're advising, mentoring, inspiring others at a younger age. And so it'd be wonderful to see what she chooses to do with that memory as well and go forward. Okay. So you also had an honor because you had the first female porter. Did I say that correctly?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, just tell me a little bit, because if my community has listened to Melanie talk about the porters, I know this is a critical role because they not only serve as the guide, but they're carrying all the gear, they're setting up tents, breaking them down, making the food and everything. But you had the pleasure of either working with or being with the first female porter. Okay.
I'm not sure quite how I got so lucky, but it was meant to be. I think maybe because they looked at my age. They never really said. Maybe she'll be the weak link to the group, and we'll make her more comfortable to have Anna was her name, and she's twice my size in strength, and she could pick me up and put me on my back with her pack, with my pack and everything. We were on the trail going over boulders and rocks, and we would be scrambling with our poles not to fall, and everybody was falling. And she would they just jump over everything. They've got their packs on their back, and they're happy. No one's ever complaining. Yeah. And the people are phenomenal there. And I don't have the answer to you why they gave her to me, but I know she's the only female porter that's working in this particular area there. And I do have her, I told you earlier, her WhatsApp to connect with Lily. And then I fell the second day into the climb, and I really hurt my elbow, and I couldn't tie my shoe. I couldn't take my shoes on or off. Ooh, so Jackson, this other porter,
on the second day of the climb.
Yes. Okay. It was going down, and I slipped on some rocks and really hurt my left arm. And they were going to send me home, and I said, no, we're going to clean it up and just deal with it when we get home. Yeah. And again, Carmen was so helpful because she'd come to my tent because she had her own tent, and she would do a dressing change and help me do whatever. But literally the young porter would come in the morning, had my shoes. I took them because you put them inside your tent, so it's not freezing, so cold. And then he'd always put my shoes on in the morning, take them off after dinner. And these people incredible how hard they work and how little they get for a living. But you wouldn't know because there's no complaining.
Yeah, just happiness. And that's
happiness
as well. Yeah. And a joy, which is
very joyful.
Yeah.
Very joyful.
So you were a coach in high school for 8 years. You've had a very active family life and really active passions. So other than surrounding yourself with the right people, what else is that either a fire in you or a mantra or statement or something that really drives you forward? Like what makes you the person that reads this article in the paper and says, I want to sponsor a young girl in this, in Kilimanjaro. And then after you meeting them, I want to go back. And what do you think is part of what drives you forward and still doing all these things at 70 plus?
Yeah, it's a good good reason. But I like to read, but I'm not a fast reader. And a lot of my friends, the women especially, when we meet for dinner once a month or so, they've read several books, and I get through a book in 3 months, or it takes me a long. I'm not a good reader, but I like to read. So my thing is I like to be around people a lot. It is a new cultures a lot. I love that. I love new physical challenges, even at this point, because now I don't run at all. I go to Pilates a couple times a week.
Yeah.
I'll do my walk around the park or get on the treadmill because that's comfortable to watch my cooking channel that I love to learn things like that. And so it's a new level of self-awareness. What at this point, what my body is telling me, no, we can't do that anymore. I have bad arthritis in my foot, which I had surgery in January, but I got it fixed as much as I could. Yeah. Now I know I have these limitations of when they say point your toe in class, I can't do that. But those things, I can still do a lot of other things.
Right.
And it's just like you said, getting the right group of people. And once those other people, like my friends that have passed, I'm lucky to have an incredible husband and family that we like to do things together.
Yeah.
A lot. And he's always encouraging me. Like when Cassandra said, do this podcast with Wendy, I said, I'm not sure, because I don't usually like to talk about, my family knows what I do. And a lot of people don't even know that I fell on Kilimanjaro. They don't know that I had to have surgery when I got home. I don't usually share. I don't go around saying, oh, I'm 70 some years old and I'm proud of it. And I want all these lines on my face, because I don't want all these lines on my face. But they're there. And then you're just either a happy person, especially with the COVID and stuff, poor people have been locked in. I've been able to have Mike, my husband, here. And when I had my surgery in January and crutches, which I hated, I mean, who in the hell would have to do something like that? Yeah. But he was there to take care of me. And I think if people can get someone in their life, a couple people in their life that they can count on, those are important things.
Agree. And I also love the fact that not only in speaking with you, but as I'm reaching out in new groups and clubs, right? A run club or a cycling club. It's very humbling when, you go into a group and you see somebody in their 60s and 70s and you're like, oh dear, I don't know if I'll be the fastest or the slowest. I might be the last one who come across this, wherever we're finishing today. But I will tell you that I am really humbled by a lot of people in their 60s and 70s who are fast, strong, and now they're retired and they're playing. And so they're out on their bike all the time, or they're out hiking, or they're out. And so it's been nice to see that, this maybe when I was probably in my 20s and 30s, first of all, you're not very smart then anyways, but this preconceived idea that as you got older that, we'd be reading more or settling more. Right. And actually, as we were growing up, again, our moms and grandmothers in their 50s and 60s weren't doing these things. They weren't hiking Kilimanjaro, most of us. And so it is really wonderful to see women, especially, forging new paths going forward and making more of their everyday, whether it's goal setting and activities or taking trips with friends like Betty, and really expanding your horizon. So I guess I say that all to just say thank you for sharing not only your story. Again, you and I started this down this road just talking about Kilimanjaro, which was like this little bit. But hearing more about, again, New York Marathon, Boston, 43 years with your family doing, the Boulder, and all the places you've seen, the people that you've met, and those who inspired you, and likewise who you've inspired, is just really wonderful to share your story. So.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Rachella. So, and the only thing I would say is we'll be posting pictures, and I'll have links to my website to have more information about Rachella's story there. And if you have questions or want to connect with Rachella, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Wendy@DestinationU.net. And is there anything else, Rachella, that we missed that we wanted to include in what we covered?
Well, I think there is a picture in the book of me with the girls in Kilimanjaro, the girls that were from Tanzania. And the story of that, which again, learning things daily or teaching something you don't realize you're teaching, but it's exciting. You know, our water bottles that I was carrying before I left, my two grandchildren, one of them wrote on it, "Dear Nana, good luck, love you," and the other one put, "I know you're okay, good luck, Nana," as well, Foster. And so the girls at the end of the climb one day at the table, my bottles are sitting there because they sterilize it and put your water in it for you, all the porters. And one of the Kiza women that is a mentor to all these other schools, she said to me, "I've been wondering what is written on your bottle. What is that?" And I go, "Well, these are my grandchildren that I had dinner with before we left, and Nana in Italian, which my dad is from Italy. It means grandmother." And they were, "Oh, that we love that. We didn't know. Thank you for telling us." So the very last morning, these girls had my water bottles, and I think would think, "Oh, can we have these?" And I said, "In one condition, if you take them to your schools and you tell people what Nana means, and you tell them that our grandson Foster was adopted from Guatemala," and I said, "But you can teach these to your community, what my grandchildren are."
Yeah.
And they go, "Okay, we promised." I just love the fact that they didn't know something like that. And I could share this part of the United States blended family story.
And your Italian heritage, bringing forth stories of your children and grandchildren and connecting again with others. And that's what makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, it was.
So
thank you, honey.
Thank you, Rachella. And thanks everybody for joining us today. And like I said, tune back in or check out some of the resources that we'll post with the podcast. And hopefully we will see Rachella either up on the trail or at the next Pilates class.
All right. Pilates.
Okay.
Pilates.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
If you dig Rachella's story today, I encourage you to listen to more of my video podcasts or audio podcasts, or also check out our community at DestinationU.net, where we're sharing more stories just like this of women over the age of 40 doing amazing things, and then sharing the kind of key how-to steps and how they, not only the planning steps, but the other factors they had to consider, right? So that they could take this adventure on, or this new experience or new activity, and kind of your homework or your shortcut to what will get you there if you get so inspired.